700 WLW podcast. Catch Scott Sloan weekdays at 9:06 on 700 WLW.
Scott Sloan, the big one, 700 WLW. Election Eve, going to the polls tomorrow. Many of you are. And one of the bigger issues you'll face outside of the Hamilton County Library, I think this is even bigger, though, too. In addition to pretty much a whole new CPS board, you have school levy issues in Deer Park, Oak Hills, West Claremont, Fairfield, Lebanon, Middletown, Lakota, and many more in the tri-state. And the question is this. If I vote yes for this thing, and I agree to a tax hike, a little bit more money out of my pocket, or, anywhere between $5 and another $40 a month, depending on what area we're talking about here with a levy. Will that translate? It should translate into higher property values, meaning that the day I want to sell my house, I should get more money back for it, versus the notion that if I say no to it, I not only save taxes, but what happens to the resale value of my house? Does it decline, and which one is the better option, yes or no? And if I'm looking at that solely from a standpoint of my money, my house, my mortgage, and how much that investment is worth. Hopefully with the answers is my wife, Michelle Sloan, sloanshillshomes.com. Good morning, dear. How we doing?
Good morning. Good.
Is it fair to look at it that way? And to me, it seems like this. It is a war when these levy battles break out between the childless and people with families. Isn't that what this is about? Is that where the line is drawn when it comes to yay or nay for these things?
I definitely think people are looking at their pocketbook and what they can, what they can afford. If they don't have children in the school district, they may feel like, well, I don't need to have strong schools.
Yeah.
I don't need to pay more for schools, but they really do. If you're a homeowner, strong schools are so important. A healthy school system, a healthy school district results in a healthy housing market. And the National Association of Realtors has actually said homes in good school districts sell faster for higher prices. And how high is the question? Mm-hmm. Homes actually in a top-rated school system can sell for at least 10% more than a similar house in a lesser-rated school system. I mean, that could be a significant amount of money. So let's just look at Lakota right now. Okay. They're saying for a house that's a value of $100,000, it's going to cost about $192 more per year. Well, most people don't own a $100,000 house. Their house is worth more than that. Mm-hmm. So the statistics say, you may be paying about $300 to $400 more per year in taxes if the Lakota levy passes. If that Lakota levy does not pass, and it has not passed, they've had 3 levies that have gone down. The prices in the Lakota school district has gone down 5 to 7%. Over the last few years since 2009. Now, some of that is economic, just basic economics, but school district has a lot to do with that. So if you own a home for $200,000, a 5% decrease in your property value means that house is only worth $190,000. That's a big difference. So you have to weigh, okay, if I'm paying $300 to $400 more per year, but my house is worth $10,000 more per year, that's a big difference.
That's a lot of money. I mean, versus, a few $100s a year versus $20,000. But the thing is, right, and this is where it gets back to the battle between people without kids and the people with kids, is that if I don't have kids, I'm not going to vote for a school levy because it doesn't do anything for me. If it reduces my property values, well, so what? If I'm nearing the retirement age or I'm in retirement, my next step is probably a nursing home or death. I'm not too worried about resale value. Is that what this battle's about?
Well, you should, if you own a home, you should always be concerned about resale value. But
what if I don't care? If it's like the last house I'm going to buy, so what? Who cares?
If you don't care, you're going to have someone that's going to sell that house eventually. If you're going to hand it over to your sons and your daughters, and at some point they're going to want a little money out of that house. Mm-hmm. They're not going to make any money, or maybe you need that money to go into that nursing home. You need that house to hold the value. The whole community needs to hold its value. I mean, it's not just about your house. I think it's kind of selfish, quite honestly, to think, well, it's just me, because there's a much bigger picture, I think, that has to be.
Well, no, wait a minute. Here's the thing, though, too, right? Is that for years I paid into the school system. and my kids they're out there. You're asking people to pay for something they don't have. I don't know if it's a selfish issue. It's a self. I think selfish is a little strong. I mean, we all look after our own finances personally, and we got to decide what's best for us.
Okay, so if you can't afford that school district anymore and you want to move and sell your house and downsize, and
right.
that happens a lot too.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're an empty nester now. We're not ready to retire and die.
No.
But I'm an empty nester. I don't want to stay in the school district because the rates are too high. Okay, fine. You want to move. You want to get the most for your house. You want to sell your house for the most money that you possibly can. So if that's the case, again, you need to have that strong school district with the high ratings, and you may have to pay more for taxes, but when you go to sell that house, you're going to get more from it.
Are we seeing that? Let's talk about some areas, compare and contrast. Lakota versus like a Mason where they pass school levies, or other areas where school levies have passed. And since you're saying that there's maybe a $20,000 difference in houses of comparable size, 4 bedrooms, 3.5 bath kind of thing, 2.5 car garage, that house, if you're to put it in a different area, would sell for more simply because the schools are the perception that the schools are well funded?
Absolutely, and well-funded and excellent ratings. I mean, those kinds of things go hand in hand when people are looking to buy a home. And there's also a little bit of that supply and demand going on. Let's just say, and it's true right now, in the Lakota School District, there are more houses on the market. So it's going to take longer to sell those houses. They're probably going to sell for a lower price. And in comparison, in Mason, there's very few homes on the market, and when they do go on the market, they sell very quickly. Oftentimes, for list price lately, in the last couple of months, homes are selling in Mason very, very quickly at higher prices than we have seen in the marketplace in the last 5 years.
So whereas the recession that affected everybody across the board almost equally, is that we saw the housing bubble burst. The value of the homes were overrated. The loans were called essentially, and we saw the collapse of the housing market in 2008. What you're saying is the areas that are perceiving as having strong, well-backed, publicly funded through tax levy school systems are the ones that are seeing a quicker return to normalcy.
Absolutely, they're recovering much, much quicker, and so that's. We can't help what happened in the economy with the recession and all of that stuff. Everybody saw a decrease at that point. But school districts like Mason School District is bouncing back quicker. Sycamore School District, strong district, the housing prices in the district is bouncing back as well. So there's a higher demand in those school districts that are doing well.
Do more people, Michelle, Sloan sells homes, my wife, do they come to you? Is there more people looking for a better school district, or are they looking to save money and maybe move in an area where the housing stock is cheaper? What do you find?
It's actually, some people, and it's different for everybody. I have some people that are looking for houses. They said they don't really care about the school district. They just want to get the most house for their money.
And it would be location, too, right? Closer to where I work, et cetera.
Absolutely. No question. So it's different for everybody. And even if somebody asks me, okay, what's a good school district? I can't answer that question for you because I don't know what your needs are. And by law, I can't steer you to any particular school district.
So you got to do your own homework on that one.
You do, and I have to refer them to, there's lots of websites, there's lots of information. Google is a wonderful thing. If you're concerned about school districts or you're concerned about a particular area of town, and again, I can't steer anybody. I can't steer you. You say, where should I live? I don't know. Where do you want to live? I can't say you should live in Mason or you should live in Montgomery or you should live in Chevy.
But invariably, if somebody's relocating, moving to Cincinnati, which you have a lot of clients that do that, you can't tell them where to live. But largely, they will use the information that's widely available on the web and find out that they want to live in a school district because they have kids that have a strong public school. And we can debate whether or not the money's being used properly, wasted, spent on stupid stuff. I get that whole thing. I'm with you, but at the end of the day, all finances are personal, and you're telling me if I have kids, I go to an area that has a perception of a well-funded school district, my house there, it's going to cost more, but when I go back to sell it, I'm going to get more bang for the buck if I support the levy.
You're going to be able to sell it quicker. You're going to be able to sell it for more. Absolutely.
So what happens to these areas then where you have, like Lakota? Take me. This is, I guess, maybe the poster district for the rest of the area because there's been such a war waged with the pro and anti-levy factions and that whole thing. It's become kind of like a theater for most people who follow politics or watch this kind of stuff. Michelle, is that what's if Lakota just keeps not passing levy after levy after levy, and this goes on for 10 years? What happens to the housing stock there? What do you see?
Well, I think, it starts in the school district. They're trying to use the money that they have wisely. But if you only have, just like your own budget, if you don't have enough money for entertainment, you don't have enough money to, the school districts don't have enough money maybe for extracurriculars. They may not have enough money for services for special needs children. They may not have money for, school districts, just like our own budget, they have to pick and choose. So if I have a child with special needs and I live in the Lakota school district and that's a program that gets, I'm not saying it is, but if it's a program that gets cut, I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to have to move to a district that can service and serve my children. So, there's an impact that is so strong, and it's so individual that you have to figure out, okay, what is the best place for me to live? Mm-hmm. What's the best place for my family to live? And, everybody is struggling. Little Miami went through it. They defeated levy after levy.
Yeah, for
after
years.
levy. And those prices, the housing prices in the Little Miami School District went down. I mean, it's reported that it went down 8.5%. During that time. And, again, we were going through, the economy wasn't doing well at that time, and they were having school issues that compounded it. And, we had such a difficult time selling houses. People wanted to sell their house so badly in in Little Miami and move, and they couldn't because there was no demand in that area. And there's a lot of correlation between demand in housing and school districts. So a strong school district it goes hand in hand with.
So what you're saying is eventually we're going to have areas where there are old people or empty nesters or people who child by decision remain childless versus the areas where there are families. That's essentially what you're talking about, the line of division.
But there's definitely. I mean, there's places again. If I
so are baby boomers selfish? Is that what we're talking about? That we have old retirees that their kid was fine. They were supporting the levies when their kids were in school, and now because of the most selfish, most entitled generation ever, is it baby boomers are saying nah, baba, nah to the levies?
Here's what I need to. I'll tell them right now. If your school district is strong right now, and you don't want to vote for that levy, that's fine. That's your right. You want to sell your house before the school levies don't pass. Maybe they should call me and go find a relocation area that they would be more comfortable, that the taxes are less.
Right.
and that way, you have to move with the times. And you know what? Older people.
Well, I mean, that's the thing is like I wouldn't hang around and be anti-levy if I lived in Mason after our kids grew up. You know what I'm saying? Because if people want to move to the area because of perception of a strong school district, I need to move.
Yeah.
I need to get the hell out of it. I got an email here from a guy here, Greg, who lives downtown now, and he said, can you ask if there are districts where schools don't matter? He lived in Hyde Park. Most of the people there send their kids to private school. He now lives downtown. What about areas where schools don't matter?
There are areas, and again, that's location. There's a lot of location. People that want to live near downtown, maybe their job's downtown, or they want to live within 10 minutes of downtown. They are more concerned about, okay, what's the style of home? How big is the home? What do I get? What amenities are nearby? Can I walk to the store? A lot of people that work in that want to live in Hyde Park, they love that they can just walk around and walk to the store, and there's a lot of that kind of thing that you can't do in the suburban areas. So certainly there are plenty of areas in town that are not as focused on school districts. Let's put it that way. Right. And again, it's totally up to you. If you don't have children and school districts are not important to you, you have other factors that are affecting how you're choosing a house. And that's really, what I'm looking at. if you're looking for a house, is it schools? Is it taxes? Is it quality of life, amenities, home prices, style of home, size of home?
And that's in areas like Lakota and others, that's where they're at battle now between being a retiree community and essentially being young families, vibrant, growing families and the like, and that's the decision. Again, number of school levies tomorrow on the ballot, and now you know what the advantage is in the voting for one versus oppose one. And I think maybe for the first time in this radio station, somebody actually put some numbers to it. Thanks again, Michelle Sloan, the wife, SloanSellsHomes.com. Thanks again. Have a great day. Enjoy your life. All right, there you go. We'll check your forecast in 4 minutes. The question I have for you, if you're in Deer Park, Oak Hills, Three Rivers, West Claremont, Fairfield, Middletown, Lebanon, Lakota, and you're facing a school levy, how do you vote on this thing tomorrow? I'm just curious. And if you're an empty nester versus a person with a family, don't you vote based on that, what resale value in schools are? I don't like the way the system is. It's been unconstitutional for as long as I've been voting. But essentially, that's what it comes down to. If you have a $200,000 house, you will get back, on average, $20,000 more if the levy is approved versus saving $360 in taxes, but seeing your property values decline significantly by voting down a levy. 513-749-7000, 800 the big one, pound 700 AT&T Sloan, 700 WLW. Fox 19 forecast got a sun cloud mix today up to 60, 43 tonight, and exactly the same forecast tomorrow. We're at 47 now at 700 WLW. Check your news in about 5 minutes here. So we have all these school levies, and looking at it specifically and solely, laser-like focus on the value of your house, not whether or not that there's the teachers' unions take too much money and the increases and the platinum benefits and and I believe that parents don't get enough credit, quite honestly, for the strength of schools. But you have to also look at this from a financial perspective and focusing laser-like on that. Financially, are you better off voting for a school levy, because it's going to increase your property values, or defeating it and saving and pocketing the money that you would be paying in extra taxes? And you're talking about 10%, essentially is what it was. You'll have a 5 to 10% decrease in property values if your home is worth $200,000 and levies fail like they do in Lakota since 2009. Value there has gone down about 5%. And so you're talking on $200,000, that's $10,000. Versus a savings of maybe $2,600 if you're to take all the money that Lakota got. And I think it's, 30... I think the average home value there is right around $200,000, so that's $360 a year. Save $360 a year, go right in your pocket. Or when it comes to resale, you're talking about $10,000. Seems like a no-brainer to me, but then that's why it gets down to if you have a family, you're talking about maybe moving, you're a P&G or whatever it is, and you're going to move in the next few years. Obviously, you want to vote for that levy because you're going to recoup that money as you sell. If you have no plans on moving, maybe you're an empty nester, obviously that's why you're going to defeat a levy. And that's what it comes down to. At 513-749-7000, John in Westchester, you're on the show. Hi there.
Hey, how you doing there?
What's up, buddy?
I'm all in favor of schools and having a good school system out here in Coleraine Township, but I'm also in favor of physical responsibility. But there's a lot of reasons.
And fiscal, yeah.
A lot of reasons I vote levies down is one reason, because once they get their claws in you, they don't let go. Just about 4 or 5 years ago, you had a parks levy, and that got on the ballot and passed. Right after that, you had a zoo levy that got on the ballot, passed. Then you had the museum that's possibly going to be on the ballot here shortly, and they want a lot of money, but these levies never go away, and sometimes you get to the point where you just can't afford all these on your property taxes. And
well, let me ask you something, John. You have kids, young kids in schools?
No, I do not.
There you go. So it does split right down the line like I'm talking about. Got an email here from JD. He said, this is bullcrap. Get Daryl Parks on the horn. Daryl Parks, another empty nester. I'm about an empty nester. I'm very, very close. But you know what I think is someone who is now facing this, who having kids in public schools still, one out of the two, the other one has since graduated, and I'm now facing being an empty nester in the next few years, is that, you know what I would do? I would simply move. I I'd move to an area where I can get top dollar for my house and move to an area where schools are not important. And maybe, I don't know, a downtown loft, something along those lines. It does to me. It leaves me scratching my head as you have people, a generation of people who have raised their kids, paid the VIG, paid for the strong schools, and when their kids get out of the schools, all of a sudden go, that's it, I'm never going to vote for another. You don't need it. It's a waste of money. It wasn't a waste of money when your kids were in school, but now that you're gone, all of a sudden, they're irresponsible. And the model hadn't changed at all since your kids were going to school versus today. It's kind of funny. I wouldn't say it's selfish. Some people may call that selfish. I would say, that's more of your self-interest, your financial self-interest. But, the numbers prove it out. That if you vote for a levy, you're going to get more. If you're not selling your house and you're going to stay there because you're retired, then you have no reason to vote for a levy. And that's what the battle's about. And I've got either an email or a caller where you have someone who has kids and votes down a levy versus maybe an older person who is an empty nester that's going to vote for the levy. I'd love to talk to someone who contradicts what I'm saying. 513-749-7000, the big one, pound 700 AT&T. It's Sloaney. More of your calls just ahead on the big one, 700 W. Scott Sloan Show at 700 WLW. About 6-7 minutes from Local 12. Deb Dixon is on the show. A little follow-up to something we had about just a few weeks ago, that teen drag racing death and the uptick in the number of kids who are road racing. And it seems like something that's always been going on. If you think back in the old 50s movies, right? The drag racing back in the day with the muscle cars in the 60s and the 70s, and now today kids are doing it, and much more so now, too. And she's got a story really good, actually, about a local cop that's helping to put a stop to all this stuff. So we'll talk to Deb about that in just a few minutes here on the show. In the meantime, the question whether or not it is worth voting for a school levy versus declining, specifically and solely based on your housing values. And the numbers across the board meet this out, that, in Lakota, for example, since 2009, property values down about 5%. Now, certainly, part of that was the economy, but districts that haven't had school money issues bounce back quicker, essentially. And so you're seeing that reflected back in your sales prices. And the question I have is this is more an aspect of whether or not this is an issue of responsible government and spending, which I agree. I think there's a lot of fat to be cut out of schools. I'm certainly no proponent of how things are being run in the status quo and the big money machine that comes out of Washington to Columbus and then to your school district. And there's a lot of fat out there in that our lawmakers have refused over the years to have changed this despite what the Ohio Supreme Court has said. But we also live in reality, too, and the reality is if you go to sell your house in an area where levies have been defeated, it's going to be on the market much longer than areas where levies are being supported, whether we like it or not, whether we think it is more tax and spend kind of government. That's the facts. At 513-749-7000, the big one, pound 700 AT&T. Ron on the cell, you're on the Scott Sloan Show. What's up?
Yeah, hi, Scott.
Hey, Ron, you there?
Yes.
What do you know?
First of all, I just want to thank you for bringing some logic to the argument. And it's refreshing to hear somebody on a conservative radio station basically saying, pro-levy, because you hear the Darrell Parks and people like that. I live in the West Claremont School District, and we have failed 3 straight levies. Tomorrow we're going for number 4. And you're absolutely right. We have seen tons of people moving out of the district. My son was in 5th grade last year. Half of his class are now going to schools with open enrollment or private schools. And I think a lot of people are just in denial. They just think, well, it's not really happening. And I tell people, your property values are going to go down, and they tell me I'm wrong, that it's not, we're just trying to force them to pay for levies. But we deal with a lot of the uneducated. People don't know the issues, and people like your last caller who talk about physical responsibility. What are you going to do?
Well, I don't know. It seems to me this is what you're getting as, and it is nothing but in my opinion, Ron, a demographic issue. In that you have a huge population of people who are graying and seniors that don't want to, and I get it, man. It's like, I don't want to spend, I'm not going to make money anymore. I'm going to hopefully get in retirement or save what I have, and I don't want to spend more on schools. I get that whole thing, but my thing has always been, well, if you live in an area where the schools are good and you have reaped the reward of that over the years when your kids were in school, in the time that, why don't you just move?
Yeah, it's very so. I wish to God they would all move if they feel that way, because it's hurting us that have children in the school district. And I will come right out and say, I think it's absolutely selfish. It's like, we got our kids through school, and now it's somebody else's problem. Well, it's not. It's the community's problem. You still have a civic responsibility. You know, in our school district, our elementary schools no longer have art, no longer have music, no longer have gym, no longer have libraries. And yet, some in our community think that's acceptable.
But on the other hand, I mean, what your schools are, and I think here's the other side of the argument too: aren't the schools exceptional?
Yes, they've done very well.
And I think, and here's the thing: I think we both agree on. I'm just talking. This is just a purely financial standpoint about the value of your house and resale. Is that's the thing that gets missed in all this? The biggest indicator of your kid's success is you. You hear about, I got great teachers and great school. I mean, that's okay. But it's about the parents reinforcing the lesson plan at home and making sure the homework gets done, and they're showing up to parent-teacher conferences. And that's happening in Lakota. It's happening in Mason and other schools that are doing very well. That's the biggest indicator of success, and it's sad because that thing gets left out of the equation when it's purely about money. Whether it's, hey, you got to fund this levy, we need teachers, and it's important. Yeah, I mean, that's great. And I think it works both ways, too, that you're going to attract better teachers, too, if they know they're getting supported. It's not like, whether kid's showing up to school on time because he doesn't have an alarm clock, or, his mom's a crack hoe and doesn't care if the kids come to school. Wouldn't you rather be working in the suburban districts where the parents give a crap? But to me, that's the largest indicator of success in this whole thing. But from a purely financial standpoint, it's hard to look at the numbers and come up with a different conclusion. We switch gears. Deb Dixon from Local 12's on the show next. On 700 W. Headlines brought to you by Columbia Chevrolet in Montgomery. Online, ColumbiaChev.com. Ask your neighbor they bought from Columbia Chevrolet. Bengals with a long week after Thursday. So you got Bengals line tonight. Holy Grail Banks at 6:05. Monday Night Football. Chicago and Green Bay, baby. Old school smackdown tonight at 8 o'clock. Just a couple of weeks ago, we had a tragic accident in the tri-state, deaths of a couple of teens out in Coleraine Township after they were drag racing. Joining me on the big one this morning is Deborah Dixon, who is the undisputed leader of Local 12.
Hey, thanks.
How you been? Everything good?
Everything
good?
Everything's good here. Just telling people stories, and this is one that I really like. It's because I think something good's going to happen from this. You were talking about the 50s, the drag racing, American graffiti.
Yeah, right. Back in the day, it seemed like that's all kids did is drag race. But today, are kids drag racing in the same numbers?
Kids are drag racing all over the country. You've got that Fast and Furious series with Vin Diesel. And YouTube, Sloan, get on YouTube and see what these kids are putting on there with drag racing in cities all over the country. They're taping it, they're cheering, they're standing by as these cars take off. But the streets aren't like the 50s. They're busier, and it's not Hollywood, and kids are dying. The kids and the police say it's making a huge comeback. And that's, it's not a 50s thing. It's now.
And so is there a workaround for this thing? I know you talk to those in law enforcement, people like my buddy Larry Stone, and have worked to try and prevent teen accidents and fatalities and like that. What are you finding in that area?
Well, there's one cop in Middletown who's taking a whole different approach, and he's got the coolest race car. He races, and he takes it to where young people are, and he personally invites young people he knows illegally race on the streets of Middletown. Right. And now he's cool. Now the cop is cool because he's got a race car, and he's got a really important message that he leaves them with after he gets them listening. We also talked to a mother whose daughter died in an illegal race accident in which the driver had put nitrous oxide in the engine to give it more of a boost.
Right.
So it's kids are going.
I got that on my pickup.
Well, then you can be part of this story.
It's the greatest.
But it's tonight at 11, and I hope people tune in because I think it's got an important message.
Well, I think it's one of those things, Deb, is that you got to have that conversation with your kid. There's the funny thing is my son's 19. My daughter is actually in the next few weeks going to go and get her full license and take the test and stuff like that. And it's something we've talked about. Not so much with girls, but it seems like guys. But wherever young teen boys are, teen girls will be around too. And so she may be in a car where someone's going to drag race, and that, as a parent, scares the hell out of me.
Yeah, that's what this teenager. She was in the car with a drag racer, and we go all the way back. It started with bootlegging when the bootleggers would run police, and here we are now, and it's back in style. And it's a scary hobby. It's a deadly hobby.
It is. I think there's some people listening go, well, wait a minute. Now, we did it when we were kids. The greatest generation did it. The bootleggers did it. The 50s kids were doing it. James Dean and all that stuff. You go into the 70s with the muscle cars. When I was coming up, Deb, during the 80s, the cars all sucked then, so no one really raced anything at all. And we had some time off for about 20 years until recently, where you had you had more fast cars coming out there too. Right. So I don't know anything about drag racing, because when I was coming up, the cars were horrible. So in that regard, though, it kind of goes back in American history. Why is it more of a problem today?
Well, I think it's fed by Fast and Furious, that series. I think it's fed by YouTube. I think people like to record it and put it on and let other people see it. And you know the power of that. It's just something, it's just back. The cars are faster. And we're not talking about country roads now. We're talking about just quiet streets in a city. And that's where the bodies are found. And I know kids aren't, like I said, kids aren't going to watch it. You know that. But if parents watch it,
maybe have that conversation. Yeah, have that conversation. Well, I think they got the devices too, like Find Friends. You've got other ways to track your kids. I think it's easier to do that than back in the day, and certainly cars are much, much, much safer than they were back in the day as well. But it's pretty scary, as crowded as the roads are, that you have kids out there, and maybe some of these backcountry roads wind up. It's sad every time you hear a kid dying as a result of this. But tonight at 11, Deb Dixon, thanks for the time. Appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
All right, have a great day. There you go. It's 700 WLW. 5 minutes away from news on the big one, 700 WLW. And then at 11:06 today, I got this thing coming up where I got to let me see if I can find the thing. I had to write it down here. I have an event coming up this weekend. My wife's forcing me to go to. And now check this out. It is business semi-formal. And I've asked people around here who I think are fashionable, which is about 2 people. And they have no idea what the hell that is. Coming up on the show, and here's the thing. If you hit a men of a certain age, if you're in your 20s, you kind of know what the hip fashions are. Once you get past the age of like 35, especially in your 40s, you have no idea anymore. We're like most guys I know are dressing the way we did back in the day. Now, they'll gladly sell it to you, but I also think there's a thing where there are people out there who dress not their age, but rather by the fashion. There's nothing more embarrassing than watching Tracy Jones come in wearing a Tommy Bahama shirt and skinny jeans. That's a terrible. No man over a certain age should wear skinny jeans, even if you can pull it off. We'll talk to Clinton Kelly. He's from TLC, What Not to Wear, about dressing your age. And now, in the advent where you're coming up with different business functions and the like, it's important to know men of a certain age, specifically, once you cross the 40-year-old threshold, what the hell are you supposed to dress like? And what the hell is business semi-formal? He's on 11:06 on the show on 700 WLW, because you do see a lot of guys, maybe myself included. My fashion style is what I call hobosexual. I dress like I'm a homeless person. I don't know why. I got an email here. It's funding schools through property tax have been ruled unconstitutional by the Ohio Supreme Court. How do these schools continue to put these things on the ballot? How about changing the? Here's the thing. This is why it doesn't change. Now, the Ohio Supreme Court makes a ruling, and last time I checked, when a high court makes a ruling, you're supposed to abide by the ruling of the high court. That's true in a lot of things, except when it comes to school funding. And the reason the school funding model remains the way it is because of the interests involved here. It is always about the middleman, the markup. You get government involved, government gets a take. They get their hand in it, you need bigger government. You also have teachers' unions. You have real estate agents like my wife. There are a lot of interest in keeping things the way they are, as opposed to changing them and making them a lot more sense. You can't do it, is what they said, but we still continue to do it because there's so much money involved in keeping it the way it is. I don't think you'll ever see a change. It's interesting, too. You get a lot of people are mad at me. So I thought you were against levies. No, I'm just saying. You vote how you want, but according to the data, and the numbers don't lie, if you pass a levy, you will get more in resale out of that property versus not paying for the levy. The difference is significant. And even if you subtract out the facts, your house is worth $20,000 more, your taxes are going to go up, but not 100%. And so maybe it's more like 18 or 19,000, but you'll be getting that if you go sell your house in the next few years. This depends on the markets too. Sell your house on average in the next few years versus just pocketing the difference in what that levy would cost you. It's thousands versus hundreds. If it's a purely financial decision, it's pretty clear you vote for the levy. And there's many reasons, of course, also not to vote for it, as we talked about. I'll get news in here and more on the other side. Scott Sloan, home of the best Bengals coverage, 700 WLW Cincinnati.